Good afternoon. It is Wednesday in the big city, just a little bit after 12 o'clock, as we welcome you to another edition of our Wednesday Link Up to Lift Up. We get together every Wednesday, irrespective of what the weather looks like outside. We come together in anticipation of hearing a word from God and just taking an opportunity to encourage one another. I trust and pray that this Wednesday finds you in the best of health and spirits. Look, I know it's a little bit nippy on the outside, um, but the sun still shines um, right here in our heart. I just wanted to drop by today for just a few minutes, and if you drop by a little bit later on, that is even better. That's the magic of modern technology. It allows us to be able to sort of put these ideas out there and then allow you the opportunity at your leisure to simply go back and check it out when you have an opportunity. Um, but today, one of the things I wanted to talk about is weariness. Weariness. Anybody out there know what weariness feels like? Weariness is defined by the dictionary as extreme tiredness, fatigue, a reluctance to see or experience any more of something. The Apostle Paul is the one who admonishes us, and I believe it's in the book of Galatians. He admonishes us to not grow weary in our well doing. Galatians, as a matter of fact, chapter 6, verses 9 and 12, Paul says, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. And therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith." And I'm just a firm believer that every now and again, we need to step back from everything that we're doing, just to give ourselves an honest and open assessment of where things stand in our lives. Remember that that definition of weariness is sort of two pronged. It talks about a feeling that we have, a feeling of extreme tiredness or fatigue. That's when we begin to feel weary. And it also speaks of a reluctance to see or experience any more of something. That is when we grow weary of something. And so I just come by today to hopefully share with you a word of encouragement, hopefully challenge you to that place in your life where you are not overwhelmed, um, that you are not overwhelmed, that you do not get so caught up in this feeling of fatigue that you feel, that you simply can't press on any longer in your journey. Excuse me for just a second. I'm just checking on our feed to make sure that we're up and running this morning. I haven't seen anyone join me yet, and so I just want to be sure that we are actually broadcasting at this moment. So bear with me while I go in and take a quick peek at our page just to see what's going on. Okay, we must be broadcasting. I see someone just joined us. Um, so we are broadcasting and we're live. Um, so again, let's get back to that subject of weariness. Weariness. Um, as I stated earlier, Paul instructed us in Galatians. Thank you, Evelyn. I was wondering for a minute. I thought I may have just been here talking to myself, but I'm going to keep on talking anyway. Paul talks about this feeling of weariness that we acquire. He says, "Don't grow weary in well doing." And I think that sort of relates to that secondary definition I gave you of the word weariness. You know, a reluctance rather to see or experience any more of something. You know, it's difficult in the course of this Christian journey for us to maintain the same level of intensity, the same level of dedication, the same level of attention to detail um, that we focus on something. It is difficult at best to maintain that level of concentration over time. You know, as time goes by, and especially when you operate in a venue that does not allow you to see the immediate results of the work you're doing. I often share with people that one of the most relaxing things I do is blowing leaves. You know, on a nice sunny fall day, I'll get out there, pop my earplugs in, turn on the leaf blower, and just have at it. And there is something cathartic for me. There's something cathartic about being able to watch those leaves just clear away, to watch that clean space develop. And it teaches me to keep my head down until I accomplish the task. Because if you look up while you're working, if you look up while you're blowing leaves and you take a measure of the number of leaves there are around you that still need to be blown, if you take a measure of the number of leaves that are still sitting in the tree waiting to fall so that they could later be blown, it can become overwhelming. God, at one point, when he was speaking um, with Jeremiah, y'all know Jeremiah. Jeremiah was known as the weeping prophet. Jeremiah was the one God sent to get his people in line. Jeremiah received the call and the commission from God in Jeremiah chapter 1. And then he begins in chapter 7 to proclaim God's judgment on Israel. And at some point during that, he has a word from God himself that uh, sort of awakened the fire within him. At verse in chapter 31, I believe it is. Yes, chapter 31, down at around verse 23. The verse says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, as yet they shall use this speech in the land of Judah and in the cities thereof, when I shall bring again their captivity. The Lord bless thee, O habitation of justice and mountain of holiness, and there shall dwell in Judah itself, and all the cities thereof together, husbandmen, and they that go forth with flocks. For I have satiated the weary soul, and I have replenished every sorrowful soul." And so God, through Jeremiah, makes a promise to the people of Judah. And he makes a promise that even in the periods where he is going to be called to bring them back into captivity, even in the periods of their punishment, even in the days of their dysfunction, even in the times of their trouble, that God himself would give rest to their weary souls. And when you're out here engaged in this day-to-day walk, this Christian walk, it is important that we remember the refreshment that God promises us. In the 23rd Psalm, David, who was one that needed some serious refreshment from God. David, you know the story of David, how David sinned, and because of David's sin, it had an impact not only on him, but on his ability to even lead God's people. And it was David who retired to himself. I can imagine him sitting in his secret closet as he penned this song, not just the psalm, but this song about God. He said, "The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters." And that's a word of comfort today. The psalmist David tells us that God sometimes places us in a space and in a time, particularly for us to rest. And then listen, he leadeth me beside the still waters. I had a friend of mine detail for me something I did not know about sheep, and that is that sheep are afraid of running water. That if sheep see running water, they won't approach it. And that a shepherd has to actually create a space where the water is not running. He has to create that space of still waters. And that's what God does for us. Every now and again, especially in our periods of weariness, God will take us and make us lie down in the green pastures, those places that he has already provided for us. And then he will lead us beside still waters. Sometimes God has to take us out of the confusion for a moment, just so that he can get us one on one. And when he gets us one on one, God doesn't berate us, God doesn't beat us up, God doesn't constantly remind us of the things that we've done bad, but he restores our soul. And then he leads us in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And so in that weary moment, we find an opportunity to just draw ourselves closer to God. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and he leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my weary soul, and he leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And David went on to say that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because of the comfort that is provided to me by the presence of God. His rod and his staff, they comfort me. And then he prepareth the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. He anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Those are promises that we can always return to when it comes to God. That God has been the same throughout all time, that God has not changed in one iota, that what he has done, he has always done. And what he has done, he will always continue to do as well. So again, I don't want you to be weary in your well-doing. God sees and God knows everything that we do. And God created us with limitations. He created us with limitations. He created us in such a way that it becomes necessary for us to take some personal time. It becomes necessary for us to just sort of step back, and take a deep breath and allow God to do the work that he does. And so, um, you know, when you're weary, God provides rest for the weary. Um, when you're brokenhearted, God provides comfort for the brokenhearted. Um, when you're in trouble, God provides peace for us even during the troubling times. And so that confidence that we have in God is based upon the experience that we've had with him. If he brought you through this, he'll bring you through that. If he got you through that, then he's got this one covered as well. So take your rest in the Lord and be prepared because after God has given you rest, God has an assignment for you. We don't get into this Christian journey. We don't follow Jesus for the vacation plan that he has. If you think about it, There is a section in the Bible while Jesus is performing his miracles, and it is filled with ands and wows, because it appears that Jesus was on his way to do one thing, and as he was even on his way to do that one thing, another opportunity for ministry popped up for him. Amen, Sister White. Amen. 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 Respite is good for the soul. Um, it is good for the soul, and God would have us to take those emotional vacations, to take those opportunities to sort of step back just for a minute, but don't step too far away. Make sure that you stay close to God throughout that time of trouble, throughout that time of weariness, throughout that time of trouble, throughout that place of brokenness, irrespective of what it is. You make sure you stay in close touch with God. I tell people all the time, it wasn't God that left me; it was I that tried to leave God. And I'm so thankful. When I look back over my life, when I look back over my spiritual self, I can see the scars. I can see those marks that have been left on me because in my attempts to get away, God would not let me go. He would not let me go, and that's the best news I've ever had. And so I hope you feel a certain level of confidence that irrespective of what's happening, God won't let go of you, that he will always be there as a constant and abiding source of strength, a constant and abiding source of help, a constant and abiding source of peace, a constant and abiding source of comfort. Y'all take care of yourselves today. It's a little crisp out there, so if you go outside, make sure put a little jacket on or something. Um, my granddaughter today was about to march out the house with shorts on, and so what we had to do. We had to stop that party right there, girl. If you don't get back in this house and get a jacket, one of those conversations. Hey, Frida Dixon. Um, so again, to all of you, I pray that God's blessings might be upon you. I pray that you would continue to be encouraged, just so that you can run on a little bit further and see how the end is going to be. God has rest for the weary. He does. He does. And he rewards our work. So y'all take care, do good, and be blessed. Amen.